because I am a part of the tarot community, and I've been a huge part for the last like 8 or 9 years now. And to me, I'm thinking, well, you know, these people, I'm the first to call anybody out for bullshit and stuff like that, but that's still supporting AI. I'm not going to say artists at all. AI creators, then, you know, and I just think it's so damaging, so unethical, and I think it's a cheap and easy way to kind of get the dollars rolling.
Well, that's part of it, isn't it? It's, I mean, in this day and age, you can apply it to the tarot community, and you can apply it to anything that's industry. And industry is always about scaling the effort, scaling the turnaround, and scaling the reach. And if you can get a computer to do it, clearly it takes out the time it takes, but it also takes away from the opposite of what we're talking about here, which is the spiritual side of tarot, the creative, integrity of artists and creators. And, let it be known that AI, we had a laugh about this, I mean, let's call it for what it is. It's artificial.
Yeah, of course it is, yeah. And no matter how you look at it, no matter how pretty the end result is, and there is some absolutely beautiful AI-produced images, but it's not the person's work, pixel by pixel by pixel. It's not that person's work. And as Renee just pointed out as well, for me, it's lacking in authenticity. There's no kind of like love gone into it. There's no part of that person has gone into making or creating these AI decks.
Part of the comparison that we're trying to make here as well with spiritual intelligence, there was a lady called Dana Zohar who coined the term spiritual intelligence first and foremost. We need to recognise that, because we're not trying to, pilfer the concept. And many other authors have also talked about this concept in the late 90s. And there's lots of definitions for it, and I've highlighted a couple which I think apply pretty much to anything that you do that's spiritual, or any kind of spiritual work. And that is self-awareness, like knowing what you believe, knowing what you are actually creating. It's self-aware. It's not, outside of your body or outside of your own awareness. The energy of spontaneity, there's no spontaneity when you key something into a computer, and being vision and value-led. So if you have a vision, that's unique to you. That's unique to your creative process. But when you just type in something to get a result, or you ask Siri, or you ask whatever, a computer to give you an answer, we're also really not exercising our own mental capacity. We're just being lazy. I mean, essentially it's laziness. It's not only not creative, it's just lazy.
It's lazy, and it's as you just pointed out, there's absolutely no process of that person's energy or anything going into that kind of work. And to me, it just leaves me cold, and I'm thinking, well, if this is the way tarot is going to evolve over the future, it's a good time to step away from it, or use older decks, that have been created, pen and ink, whatever. Because I've said to you before, and I'm really not a huge fan of digital art anyway, so that to me, I'm not saying, I'm not bashing anyone, it's just my personal preference. I prefer, drawn or hand-drawn or hand-painted decks and things like that. So when that AI thing come out, I was absolutely horrified. I really was, I'll be honest. But you see it every day now. You see, I've left a lot of the Facebook groups because of it, because I just can't deal with it anymore. People fawning over these decks and saying, "Oh my God, let's do a deep dive study on that." Oh dear, just go away. So I've left because it's starting to really, really get to me now.
Yeah, and look, the hand-drawn process, I'm going to refer to someone who's really well known in the tarot community, and that's Benabel Wen. Benabel put out a hand-drawn tarot deck herself, I think it's Spirit Keepers Tarot, and she hand-drew that, but also she's a prolific writer and blogger, and she's done some great educational sort of videos and all that sort of thing. And I read her blog actually on her commentary on AI. And probably the thing that stood out for me the most was this sort of, not argument, but perspective on what this could mean for the tarot community moving forward, or what we always are referring to as collective consciousness. And the fact that this computer can dive into multiple touch points in terms of other people's creativity or other people's ideas and other people's, it's a collective effort really. Putting the argument about the artist's rights and creativity aside, just as a conversation point, it's a really interesting perspective on how, a computer could generate that kind of end result, and then look at that image to say, okay, well, if you wanted to create a major arcana card based on the Hermit, and you wanted to put in a lantern or a light or a Virgo, or you put all these like keywords in that probably pertain to the Hermit, what would that look like? And, it just as a conversation in terms of curiosity, I found that point that she made really fascinating. And by no means does it actually, I'm not trying to justify it, and I don't agree with it, and I'm on the same page as you, Martin. I agree 100% that artists, we're losing. I mean, but that's just everything in general. I think that the art of anything handmade or hand-drawn or hand-created is just becoming less and less prevalent. I mean, we've got Etsy, we've got beautiful people who still create things by hand, but they're never really able to scale their business because they have to physically make it themselves, and so the artist will always be that person who people are sought after because they're unique, they're one of a kind. You can't recreate that, you can't scale it. But at the same time, I think there's more integrity in knowing that you created it and it is yours. But then there's that whole thing as well of putting these ideas out online. I mean, I've got a friend of mine who makes lanterns, and she makes miniature sort of scenes within lanterns, and she's afraid to put them on Instagram because people will copy them or steal the idea, and that's another problem.
I just wanted to interject there because of something, what they were talking about before this. I actually have watched the video that they're referring to by the tarot creator, on the one who hand drew, that whole AI talk. And I remember that point that she made, and I mean, I do myself find it fascinating, or I think just as an idea as well. It is kind of fascinating in a curious way, what an AI generator would spew out from keywords and stuff, just for interest's sake, to see what it brings out. But in terms of something like making tarot cards, and they're gonna mention it soon now, but there's something about tarot cards that, well, for me at least, making tarot cards or any magical tool of divination, or even like just any spiritual work, I believe requires a lot of self to be imbued into it. And so, sure, as like a thought experiment or a thought curiosity, would be great to see what an algorithm would spew out. But at the same time, if I am interested in divination practices such as the tarot, there's a lot of power, there's a lot of spiritual and magical power in being a direct creator of your work, not only for the end product, but more so, I think, more importantly, for self-actualization, self-determinism, agency. There's a lot of power in self-agency and self-determination, and imbuing everything you engage with the fullness of yourself, physically, intellectually, emotionally, and of course overall. All those things come together in the metaphysical and spiritual. And so it kind of defeats the purpose when you think about creating tarot decks using prompts and putting that into an art generator, and actually planning on using those tarot cards as like in your divination process. Experimentally, it would be fascinating to see how an artist could collaborate with a machine somehow. Experimentally, it would be interesting to see how that goes. But practically, for self-growth, for oneself, I don't know. I feel like you would be missing a huge part of the process, and the process really is like, as creator beings, the process is where the magic is. It really is. And so, yeah, I just thought I'd add that. But let's continue. It was so interesting.
The idea, and that's another problem.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think the spirituality behind creating a deck and using a deck that was originated, and the DNA of that deck is a collective, unapproved, not vetted creation, doesn't make sense to me. And I mean, how does that even work when a deck is created? And like you said before, the artist, you don't know where these images are coming from. How does that bypass copyright? And how does that bypass actually something being viable and being printed?
I think this is what the artists are actually trying to do now. I think that they're going to, there's going to be a kind of law created, because at the moment, they can't prove that any of their work is in, the AI generators or anything like that. And if, you scrutinise something, oh, that's my pixel, how on earth are you going to see that? it's impossible to see with the naked eye, and this is what these AI generators are doing. They're actually getting the images from everywhere. It could be anywhere you can think of where there's artwork, images, whatever. And they're actually dumped into these generating machines, whatever you call them, generating computers, and that's spewing out, obviously, AI images from the original, artwork of that person. But to me, this is just one step ahead from what happened when, we had COVID and people lost their jobs and things like that, and then we had this huge, explosion of, digitally created decks that was, done in half an hour, and then they went on to Kickstarter, and then to me, that's when the tarot community starts to go downhill. And then now we've got, all the AI things as well. It's just another step in that direction, but obviously, the decks are being produced a little bit more professional looking than they were before, and so I don't know, Renee, where it's going to kind of end up in the end. I agree with Benabelle. I mean, she's an amazing person, and there is some amazing people within the community, and I have seen how much, as you said about the friend with Etsy, and I've seen how much now that, it is damaging people's reputations, it is damaging people's livelihood, because you can get, an AI deck, out there, within, a couple of days. If you're spending 18 months plus on drawing images for a tarot deck, there's no competition, is there? Absolutely none whatsoever. So this is what's happening at the moment within the community. Artists are being ignored, overlooked, and as I said to you at the beginning of the podcast, when you've got these mass market publishing houses that are putting the feelers out there now with AI decks, where does it end? And that's what you think. Well, if I'm doing it, then kind of putting the feelers out saying, it's okay. It's not okay though, is it? And that's the problem. Yeah.
The actual reproduction of artwork itself, because I've got a pre-press background and printing background and all that sort of thing. Just from that point of view, when a publishing house, obviously back in the day, received some artwork for a tarot deck or what have you. Now the artist, just so people can sort of understand as well the scalability of digital created files. When you're creating a digital file, you can go on the computer and you can create your canvas size to be, 2 to 3 ratio, and so therefore you can duplicate that page size much more rapidly than what you would if you were to get a ruler with a pen and paper and sit there and draw a frame to then hand paint the artwork within that border. So when they pop it on the printer or the press, it will go through and it will be the right size. Now that, again, used to all be done by hand, just before fonts were created. I remember doing hand-drawn type, on bromide paper, and then you'd photograph it and then it would go to the newspaper. But now it's all what we call computer to plate. So the flexibility and the accuracy of homogenizing the templates and homogenizing, something so all the borders look identical and all of the color palettes don't vary. Because the other thing as well is when you're using swatches, computer swatches, you can just grab your paintbrush and and if you use a green throughout the deck or a blue throughout the deck, it's going to be consistent and it looks more it looks more, it's more accurate, and as a colour palette, it looks consistent across the deck. But then again, it's that beautiful art of, well, where are the flaws? And sometimes the beauty is in the flaw because it's not perfect. So I completely understand that. When you look at anything that's created, like book covers or any art that's created digitally, it's it's stunning. Like, the artworks out there are incredible, because you still need a person behind that, putting the idea into it and using the tool, because it's a tool essentially. A tablet is not the same as a canvas and a brush, but the technology is there to almost emulate it like artificial intelligence, to the point where that paintbrush looks like a watercolour brush, but it's digital. Yeah. So that in itself is a form of artificial intelligence, and it's so debatable, isn't it? It really is debatable, because where is the artist left? They either have to stick to what they know, and that's a generational thing as well, because we've got new generations coming through, younger people who are more computer savvy, and so they're gonna be drawn to, well, I need to pay the bills, I need to get the rent done, so I need to learn Photoshop or learn the latest programs, and so that art of the old way of doing things is becoming more and more of a distant memory. And so, it is very sad and a little frightening. But I think with anything, there's always a flame. There's always.
I honestly don't think it's frightening. Maybe it's a bit sad, but perhaps for me, not in the sense that they're talking about, but it is not scary at all. I suppose that could be the eternal optimist. The eternal optimist in me sees challenges such as these as opportunities for novelty, and novelty in how we come up with solutions, and even beyond solutions, but what novel wisdom comes out of it, and in what novel ways can we apply the wisdom and into the solutions. Like, we come up with novel solutions and novel alternatives. I think that's actually a better way, not necessarily solutions, but alternatives, because not everything needs a solution. Sometimes there just needs to be novel, alternative possibilities and inventions and creative leaps of human consciousness. Once we transcend the fear narrative, once we transcend the reactionary phase of consciousness, we can actually find alternative paths that lead to something we didn't quite expect. And that's always magical, I think, in growth, in any growth, culturally, individually, spiritually. It's those detours that force us to go on side tours, side quests.
But I think with anything, there's always a flame. There's always this sort of candle that we can continue to keep it alight, even if it's in the background or.
Yeah, I really do, because there is some beautiful produced tarot decks, that have been kind of undrawn, painted. And to me that makes it so unique. And, you know, perhaps I'm a bit old school because of my age and things like that. But I don't know, you know, and, you know, I can tell, you know, who's put love into something and who hasn't. You know, that's just something I've got, you know. And you can tell straight away, you know. And like, when I was absolutely horrified when I saw, like, a carbon copy of the Crowley Tarot, and it looked like it was like when Frida met Walt. I mean, we spoke about that before. It was just hideous. And, you know, I'll never forgive that person for, like, you know, absolutely ruining the Crowley day. But I understand that, you know, new things have to come out. I understand that things evolve, and that's fine. You know, but there's ways and means of doing it. You know, tarot is supposed to be a spiritual practice. You know, even because we all know that it originated allegedly as a card game. Normally, I mean, years ago, people used to use it for spiritual practices. But now it doesn't seem that way. It seems it's going in a completely different direction, like a pack of Pokemon cards. And this is what's kind of scary about what's happening there.
Absolutely. Continuing the conversation around the AI, not just with tarot decks, but within the spiritual community, you also shared a blog with me that I thought was fantastic. It's called Druids. It was on the website druidsgarden.com, and anything that we talk about in this podcast as well, we're going to leave all the links below so you can check it out later. But the article was really, really interesting because it was talking about, obviously, image and text generators, but also not just to produce tarot decks, but to produce rituals and magical tools. And that in itself is, you know, asking a computer to create a ritual is just insane to me.
Oh, that's just wrong on every level, isn't it, really? Yeah, it's... You just can't create a ritual via a computer. You just can't.
You know, how do you connect with your holy guardian angel? How do you connect with your spiritual self when you are literally typing in some sort of... It's like you're not ordering an Uber. You know what I mean? You're not trying to book a taxi. You're trying to get to a destination that is of the mind, unique to you. And to be connected to the intelligence that surrounds you, the spiritual intelligence that surrounds you, not the, once again, artificial intelligence. And therein lies the difference. It's not real.
It's not real, and what's happened to, like, you know, what's happened to the tangible, what's happening to kind of, you know, what's happened to the, you know, people say, oh, do the work, but clearly a lot of people kind of miss the point what the work is. And as you say, you know, a spiritual practice is a personal practice to everyone. You know, yours is different from mine, mine's different from somebody else's. And, you know, but I could never think of anything more horrifying than going online and looking for a ritual and asking the computer to help me out. You know, no, that's never going to happen.
Yeah, and, you know, and this is the other thing. I mean, I guess it's not really artificial. Well, it is artificial intelligence because when you look at, you know, the different technologies that have been developed or AI technology, it's quite broad because you can touch on it in terms of, you know, Google searching, that's a form of artificial intelligence. YouTube, what we're actually creating here now is, you know, people will find us. Or you look up podcasts or look up the word, whatever we label this video, like the name of this video, is searchable. So anything that people are looking for, they can find it through a machine. So really, I mean, there are advantages to it because it gives us a voice and it gives us the opportunity for people to get educated. But it's like anything, you know, you don't want to, you know, give a baby a hand grenade. You know, if things are used in the right way, just like magic or anything, you know, you can give someone a hammer and they can knock someone over the head with it. Or you can build a house for shelter for a family. Yeah. Just the tool has to land in the right space with the right person. Otherwise, it's just abused. and everybody likes to, jump on the computer. But, and we talked about this the other day in terms of, and this is probably going to be another topic for another podcast, but just the fact that this day and age, everything is accessible via Google, and there isn't a lot of time taken where people, there are, because a lot of people buy books and a lot of people, still know how to open a book and read a book, like a physical book. But I feel that information, I know for a fact for me, I'm going to retain the information a lot more if I actually set aside time to open a book, make a cup of tea, sit there and actually read it. Whereas if I'm on the computer and I'm skimming through something to look up some information about whatever, there's going to be a distraction there. There's going to be an ad that pops up, or you can find a link and you click on something.
I have to interject there. I totally agree with what she says, although I have to say, for me personally, my mind, for me, I am able to retain a whole lot more information from audio, visual information, more than from actually sitting down and paying attention to a single book for hours. I could never retain as much information, useful information, as I actually do now with audio and visual type of content, which I find interesting and awesome for a brain like mine. And I can, be engaged in other activities while I am immersed in beautiful information, especially being able to immerse myself in beautiful information while I am creating and making beautiful things as well. There's a huge amount of sensory depth in the information, and my ability to retain useful information and make useful connections about what it is that I'm learning. But yeah, it does require, hell, Googling anything, that's terrible. And even though I don't get distracted by ads, I definitely might end up in another rabbit hole. So yeah, I don't do any research, intense research using Google. It's crap anyway. Dead internet theory, look it up. But YouTube has become a nice, useful library of information. There's a lot of, important and rich information that you could previously only get from reading books. But now, what I love about the internet and this, how humans choose to use these technologies by creating video essays about it, podcasts, people actually talking about all these informations, and especially from different individual perspectives. That is also kind of amazing, instead of getting the information from a singular perspective of an author of a particular book. it's amazing how, as humans, we've managed to self-organize in such a way that we are synthesizing information individually and then deciding to share it with everyone who is looking for it on the internet, and that's beautiful. That is like, see, that's such a stunning way of like using advanced technology as an optimal tool in the pursuit of knowledge. You know, the knowledge can be out there from literally millions of individual perspectives, and that's incredible. That's like the ultimate, well, okay, not the ultimate, but that's an amazing universal knowledge database with the help of the internet. Well, let me get back to this.
You can find a link and you click on something else and it takes you in a completely different direction than the intention of why you were there in the first place. I mean, how many times have you got on your phone or got on a computer knowing like, right, I need to look up this, and 5 minutes later you're in a different place?
All the time. You know, I've picked up my phone, information, and I forgot where I picked up my phone for, because as you say, you get distracted. You know, I think, I'm going to do it in a minute, and you open Instagram and you think, what did I go on my phone for now? Yeah.
Every day. And it's a problem, and I've become more and more conscious of that, because we get into this, you know, we're creatures of habit. Human beings are like, okay, we get into this pattern of clicking something or picking something up, and it becomes unconscious. It's no longer conscious, you know, and I think to live consciously is so important. You know, if you have an intention when you wake up in the morning, what does my day look like? You know, and it's great sometimes, let's just, you know, shoot the breeze and go with the flow. There is a time for that. But I also feel really strongly that if people want to develop their spiritual practice or any kind of, you know, conscious effort in terms of understanding tarot or understanding their education, I mean, because spirituality is it's an education to self-develop as well for yourself. If you're consciously working on that, you know, or having your daily practice, whatever that looks like, and what you're drawn to, you know, you've got to apply yourself to that. Because otherwise, if you're not actually practicing something, you're not really a member.
Exactly. There's no point just absorbing all this information or reading about it, doing nothing about it. You know, as you say, you know, it's a journey, it's a spiritual journey, it's a lifelong journey. It's a journey to evolve ourselves. I'm not going to say we're all going to evolve into 5D consciousness overnight. That's not the point. The point is you're actually doing something with the knowledge. You know, you need to apply that knowledge to your own life, and I find that very important.
Well, there's that saying as well, you know, what can't be measured can't be managed, and that is actually one of the things that it's sort of in sort of summarising the AI kind of topic is, you know, a measurement of spiritual intelligence often relies on self-reporting. Yeah. And I've taken that from Wiki, but the fact of the matter is, well, what's self-reporting for the tarot community? Journaling. You know, you're checking in with yourself and you're reporting on your own development, your own spiritual journey. And that's why people love to journal and self-reflect. Self-reflection is key, because if we can't sort of look back and go, gee, if I had my time again, would I have, you know, done something this way or this way? How can I take the best of that and move, you know, cherry pick and make something better for next time, as opposed to just, you know, leaving it in the dustbin and thinking, well, it doesn't matter anymore. Everything matters, you know, and if you're self-aware, you're going to be documenting that or journaling that and realising, like, look how far I've come. You can measure it. You can actually see the difference. of where you were maybe 10, 15 years ago as to who you are today. I mean, I don't journal as much as probably some people do, because, you know, life's for living. But at the same time, if you are, you know, measuring things like this show, this is our first episode. Imagine what the 50th episode's going to be, or the 100th episode. Let's look forward to that.
I'm looking forward to it. It's just brilliant. And, you know, to recap on the point, journaling, as you say, I mean, I've journaled for years. And tarot journaling, if you want to kind of go down, you know, the self-help, self-growth route, it's really important because, as you say, you can look what happened 12 months ago. You can see. I mean, I used it because I've always been really open about my mental health struggles on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And like I always say, you know, look, check, see how you were 12 months ago in comparison to where you are today. And, you know, you see your perspective changes and you see things differently. And tarot really can be used as a tool for growth, and keeping a journal, whether it's just a spiritual journal or, you know, your daily journal, does help you as a person to evolve.
I've skipped over a point here that I really wanted to talk about with you. I know we're going to try and keep these episodes to around half an hour-ish. But there was another website that we talked about as well, which was deckable.com. And, you know, this is going to be sort of another sort of space where, you know, digital decks. I mean, how the hell can you connect and shuffle a digital deck? Please explain this to me.
Yeah, I remember like going back in the day, like 20 years ago, when you could like go into Google, type in free tarot reading, and you got the back of the card. Notes, remember, you used to click and stuff like that.
Yeah, back in the GeoCities day.
That's it. And now it's just kind of evolved into this, oh, you can purchase my digital deck, blah, blah, blah. Okay, there is links, I think, to the physical deck you can buy, but who's going to do that? And what is a digital reading? I mean, is it accurate? No, I don't know. Is it? It can't be, can it? Because it's not actually a person shuffling it again. It goes back to like the computer doing all the work again. I don't know. I find the whole idea completely bloody moody. Deckable. Upload your deck to Deckable. You can you can browse all this. You know, it's a bit like an Argos catalogue that we've got in the UK.
Speaking of digital tarot reading, I used to have an app that would do that, and yeah, like there were a lot of misses, but like when you are not, it's really hard to tell with certainty the margin of error, and he's completely right. Like, well, speaking from my own experience, to be honest, it can get really, really nefarious, honestly. In my time of using digital tarot readings, I guess it uses the apps. I guess they use some type of algorithm, like AI algorithm, to do it. But yeah, not only is it not accurate, it is also maliciously, intentionally, it does maliciously and intentionally mislead the user. Even like numerology apps and all these spirituality apps, they might get some things right most of the time, but for me, the worst thing, the point where I was like, fuck all of these, and I deleted all the apps, and I like just, you know, shut it all down was just the malignant intent to mislead the user, like in the silliest and yet most like dark ways, dude. Like, and if if one, like I was, if one hasn't like established a strong sense of discernment, you can like easily get misled by the information that these apps give you, to a point where it causes confusion, which obviously creates a lot of unease within yourself, because the golden rule of knowing thyself, it becomes really hard to stand in your truth and be in your own power when the information that it's giving you is basically gaslighting you, and like, and even if it's not in obvious ways, in this little ways in which it kind of just stunts progress, get to a point where you realize that there is no progress with this. You just it just like tries to keep you stuck in circles of confusion and resolve and dissolve. Like, it's fucking crazy. I need to actually record an entire video or audio about this shit, dude. Like, I went through it all, and like at the end of it, but like I was saying, none of this has to be scary. At the end of the day, you just have to go back within and like establish stronger boundaries, but more so like just establish a stronger knowing of self and an unwavering sense of discernment, yeah, just know thyself. And then the thing is, once you go back to self, to trusting your own knowing, instead of relying on anything external, they become irrelevant and useless.
That's kind of like if we're going in the UK, like, oh, I'll have a look through that.
And that's why I stopped using them, or feeling the need to engage in those types of technologies.
One see for like that one. I am not convinced at all, Renee, by this new thing that's coming out at the moment. And I have heard a few people within the community mention it, oh, you can have a look at my deck on there. I don't know what the cost is, whether you've got to subscribe. I haven't really looked into the whole thing. I'm not interested in any of it. But another thing I find completely, absolutely bloody horrifying. Digital decks, no.
The advantage is, I mean, when you want to find out who's responsible, look.
And also, like, just wanted to mention that I actually started using the digital decks, the apps, mainly to learn the deck. To try and learn the deck, and so I can create my own. That was the intent, but then I got lost in the sauce, actually consulting with it and like using it instead of studying it only. So, I still think that there would be value in like learning the decks through some of these apps, but like at the end of the day, yeah, just like do you, man.
Who's responsible? Look to the person who'll benefit. And the person who's going to benefit is the person who are producing the digital decks, because as opposed to hand creating a deck and hand shuffling a deck, well, you've got to actually produce a tangible product. And that tangible product is a printed deck. And that printed deck costs money. Whereas a digital deck, what's the overhead? There's no overhead. Because it's directly plugged into the computer, the artist does all the work, and all it needs to be done is popped onto a website. And the only overhead for that is hosting a website, as opposed to actually outlaying the cost of a printer and the packaging and everything, and the book and everything that goes along with a tangible tarot deck. So once again, it really is dumbing it down to the lowest common denominator in terms of production, in terms of integrity, in terms of... it makes me furious as well, because I cannot understand how you could touch a screen and expect some sort of spiritual advice. I think people are always looking for answers. People always want that quick fix. And, by tapping your screen, obviously that's the most... it's the fast food of tarot.
It is exactly that. I mean, I'm going to look into this actually and see if you have to pay per reading, and things like that. Because as we know, when people want this quick fix answer, it's going to be, I need to pull another card, I need to pull a card, I need this other reading, I need this other reading. They're going to spend like $100 before they've even got out to work every morning. I mean, I don't know whether it works like that or not. That's something to research, but definitely. I just think it's so, I don't know, Renee, I just think it's so crap now. Everything is fast food, fast fix. I want it now, like I want it yesterday. And
instant gratification.
Yeah, but the good thing about, I suppose, Deckable is it will save us looking at dreadful Kickstarters, because they're already there, so, yeah, I mean, I suppose it's good.
Everyone's a creator. Yeah. And, the Kickstarter thing is quite interesting, because obviously the appeal is people want to make money. And so they think, well, okay, if I can understand what tarot is, it's a pack of cards, and all I need to do is create these images, put it together, and that does a tarot make. No, that does not make a tarot. Take the time to actually understand what you're creating before you even start creating it, number one. And number two, it's very much like, from my perspective in my, career path, years and years and years ago, coming from a space where we used to hand draw the type and, hand draw a logo, you'd actually have to create that with pen and paper. Yeah. Sure, I had to upskill, and you get behind a computer then, and you work in an agency, and you work in a commercial environment, so you have to upskill. But the problem lies in not just understanding how to use a tool, but the brain's trust behind someone who is creating the end result. For example, the graphic design community was appalled, when you've got websites like Fiverr, pay $5 for a logo, whereas in the past you'd pay a designer a lot more than that to go down a discovery of what that brand means, and talk to the client about what that logo represents, and there's a whole study on that. I mean, I've got a master's in design communication, so you've really got to understand the strategy behind the end image. It's not just putting a coffee cup in a circle and going, oh, there's your coffee to go pop-up shop, there's your logo, and you've just paid $5 for that. There's no thought behind that. There's no thinking behind it, and that's what design thinking is. It's, the process behind the end result. And when you're just tapping it in, I mean, I'm not going to name names, but I also wanted to create a website for someone recently, and they needed a website, and the person's response was, "Oh, why don't we just go to Fiverr?"
Sorry.
What? No, it's not.
No.
That's not how it's done. You know, if you want to create a brand or you want to create something, you've got to put that energy into it. And the same is with the tarot. You have to, have an inkling of why there are 4 suits. It's, nature-based, and let's get that down to your ABCs. And you ask maybe some of these deck creators or Kickstarters, I mean, do they even read tarot? How would you even create a deck if you actually don't understand the mechanics or the DNA of tarot?
Yeah, Levi's famous saying is, "Can you even read, bro?" And it tickled me when you said it, because you just see this all the time on social media, as you say, like, and you're thinking, well, did they really pick up a deck of tarot cards and create the deck that way, or do they just wing it? And I think the latter is mainly the truth.
Absolutely. And, the verses that we're talking about today, artificial intelligence versus spiritual intelligence, well, the common denominator in both arguments is intelligence.
I was just going to say that intelligence, or lack of
intelligence behind these, look at me, pop out this deck. And then, we can also then dive into the whole thing of, which we're not going to today, but the concept of the deck itself is one argument, but then, what's the end product? The stock they're using, or that way it's getting reproduced. Where's it going? Is it going to China? Is it going, how do these things get made? But yeah, it's a great, I think this has been a really...
Yeah. Just to close off with this, create that which without me would not exist. Creating that which without me would not exist. I'm about to go deep into this mantra. But yeah, the whole tarot thing. So I when I got into tarot, I got really excited, and I really wanted to create my own decks from scratch and all of that. But yeah, with all of these experiences that I had, these disappointing experiences that I had with these tarot apps, and also just the whole the whole rabbit hole that I went into it. I came around back to this mantra, that to create with purpose for me is to create that which without me would not exist. And one of the things that I've always, for as long as I can remember, one of the things that I always felt, hesitant about tarot, and just archetypes, just like the use and the engaging, or this whole world of archetypes, and more so existing archetypes. I've always had an aversion to that whole arena. I remember, feeling very, resisting feeling a lot of resistance towards going into works of people like Carl Jung, particularly because of this, this importance that is placed into existing archetypes. And so for me, I've always found that really limiting on a personal, spiritual, psychological, and also just on a cosmic scale. I always felt like surely there should be, if there has to be, there must be infinite archetypes, right, to refer to. But then pragmatically, obviously, infinity is beyond the now. But with infinite possible archetypes, why choose to focus on the most played out, boring, by now outdated archetypes that have been strangling the collective consciousness for millennia? Why focus so much on that instead of creating new ones? If you have to have archetypes, or like just throw out the whole archetype thing anyway. We are so much more than what archetypes represent and could ever represent. And so I'm rambling now, but this one of the, and so one of my resolutions about creating tarot or any tool of divination, I've been thinking a lot about the I Ching lately. But in creating any type of divination tool, I definitely do not want to create something that would further perpetuate or like refer to existing archetypes in like, or very popular or very outdated archetypes in the collective. Like, I think it's time to like just come up, do something new. It's been time. And so should I ever come back to the idea of creating divination tools, whether it's tarot or something like the I Ching, I definitely wanted to be a creation that which without me would not exist. And so it would, I don't even know if it could be called tarot anymore, or I Ching or whatever. It would have to be something completely new. But then again, that's creating a new template for more people, to more beings to like conform to. And like that kind of sucks when you think about it that way. Like the fact that creating a template to be used by the collective implies that it's, like there implies the need for limitation to fit into the template. So I don't know. It's a whole thing that I go back and forth about. I'll make full sense of it one day, I know. And so that's it for now. My battery's gonna die, and like I don't want to end things that way. So thank you for listening this far. Hope you have a nice end of rest, a nice rest of your day, rest of your dreams, rest of your sleepy time. Bye.